having my morning coffee.
Good. Everyone here is about to leave for a picnic. And
Yeah.
one of the people is not here yet. She had a meeting in Antwerp. She said she would be back half an hour ago, but she isn't here yet. So I hope she gets here soon.
She's probably on her way, but in the meantime, we can maybe already
introduce ourselves. This is something I just, as a background. Right here next to me is Caroline Vermeer, who I think you've already exchanged emails with.
Yeah.
And the person we're waiting for is Lien Poelmans.
Maybe a little background of our team. So we are in one of the teams of Vito who are studying or who are working on spatial modeling.
Yeah.
And our expertise is modeling land use. So together with the person who you met, he was actually, we call him our founding father of our team. So a couple of years ago, he started working at Vito and he realized, okay, this unit is doing interesting environmental modeling, but there's no specific land use model yet. So he started together with his team developing this land use model for Flanders. And now our team, we are based on this land use model. We are doing a lot of spatial analysis, but also scenario work, mainly as a policy. How should I call it? Policy advisory toolkit.
But this model that Caroline is talking about is basically I don't know what to call it. It's a newer version of the ones that you've seen. It started with Island model and the SIMULACION model. We use somewhat different technique now, which means we can deal with much more than land use inside the same framework. And the current application that we're working on mostly is, as Caroline just said, in Flanders, which is a very interesting situation to work in. And of course, this institute is in Flanders, so that's very appropriate. But there are a number of applications in other places, some of which you know about. And the WISE model, of course, is an earlier version of this. But I should point out that most of the team that was at RIX, myself and Guy and Inge Ulje, moved here to Vito. Some of the people stayed at RIX and they continued. So the models have somewhat split now. The WISE model is one that we developed there, but they now, I guess, are continuing with that. So we no longer actually have the WISE model as such, though what we do is virtually the same, except that I think we have a better technique now for doing the same sorts of things. I think what I'm hoping Lien Poelmans does turn up, because they will, of course, will have to be involved, she and Caroline, with any sort of matters that have to do with the arrangements, actually with Vito, to get something done here. But maybe the best thing to do is to start from your end, because, well, you've already explained to me a little bit of what you want, but beyond that, we would need to know a lot more, I think. And one question that I had just immediately was, you talked about an application in your region, and I then realized I didn't really know what your region was, whether you were speaking of all of Patagonia or Aysan region or Aysan province, because I guess you're in Puerto Aysan. So I don't know what area you have in mind. And then, of course, there are many other things we'd like to know, like what's the background there. I've looked up a little information, but you would give us a much richer idea, as well as the sort of problems, the more particular problems that you think a model to be useful, would have to deal with. So perhaps you could start sort of filling us in with what you think is important.
Okay, as we talked before, uh, we are interested in modeling and simulation on the Aysén region. Puerto Aysén is a city within that region. We have 10 cities or towns with their own majors,
Yeah.
and they're quite fragmented. They have their own problems. This is a very isolated region. Normally, we have to go through Argentina to get from Puerto Montt, the north part,
Yeah.
to get to the region, or by sea, by shipping companies. And we have a great kind of problem that people still don't recognize that will break down in 5 to 10 years. Uh, this is incredible. Last 10 years, climate change has made great impacts. There's less snow. Before, snowing was between March and October, and I understand snow as the warehouse of the water through
Yeah.
our mountains, and also we have very dangerous activities that are coming through salmon farming, salmon industries. They are on the coastal zone, and
And what do you mean with why is it risky or?
uh, pollution. Let's say pollution. Let's say fishing salmon that get out of the cages, and
Yeah.
they are very how you say depredant. I mean, they eat other species, and also there's a lot of on the sea level or sea ground a lot of pollution, and we must take care of that. The
Yeah.
fishing industry, artisanal industry, also was over product. How you call when depleted,
Overfishing.
overfishing.
Yes.
That had a
Could
lot
I
of
just ask you
activity.
one question in passing? Do you have a native salmon population there?
No, no,
Okay,
no.
so that's not a problem then, because in Canada we have the problem that with the fish farming that the salmon that escape crossbreed with the native salmon, and that causes problems as well. So that's at least one problem you don't have.
Exactly. We also have the how you say the garbage control
Yeah.
here. As we are isolated, we don't get it out of the region.
Mhm.
We don't have a processing plant, and there's a lot of landfilling with the industrial and housing waste. And also, we have a great danger of percolates, and we have to have a long-term solution. We have a lot of depletion on wood forestry, dry wood forestry for people to get heating homes, and a lot of cultural issues about caring of all this waste plastic. There's a lot of accumulation of plastic in the region. I mean, we have a lot of problems as an isolated place, 120, 130,000 people. And what I think there's a lot of political solutions that just
Mhm.
turn on daily problems, but not future problems. So, as we talked yesterday, well, politicians are taking care more of the daily products and to show and to make fireworks instead of taking care of the future. Um, as I tell you, it's a very low level, academic level here in the region. We have three universities, one locally, 3 years old, and the other one belongs to other regions that they have their agencies here.
Okay.
Uh, and also we have cattle or farming, sheep farming, cow farming, and also I believe in the future, as the climate change will go on,
Mhm.
we will have a lot of agriculture here. I mean, all the, in
Can I
the
maybe ask you a first very important question? Is your problem or the problems that you're describing, do they all have a spatial impact, or are we more talking about a system dynamic problem? Is it the systems, the different subsystems, the different activities that are disturbing each other on a number of aspects, or can it all be related to spatial aspects?
Before you answer, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe
we've had two more people who come in. Maybe I could just introduce you quickly.
And we shall switch places.
Yeah.
So
Lean Pullmans is here. So just one moment.
Sorry, train delay.
Hello.
Hello. This is Jorge or George.
Hi.
Lean is also one of the managers here. So, and then I guess while we're introducing the person here who's been working on a systems dynamic model, which includes some coastal zone aspects, is well, I'll let you in.
Yeah, my name is Jan de Kok. I work a lot on systems modeling and stakeholder participatory processes using system techniques, qualitative and quantitative. And maybe it's interesting to mention that we did a project a few years ago, also with Caroline, which included a case study in Chile on the impact of climate change on the biological pump and food web and economy, with, I think it's University of Talca, economics department. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the Department of System Dynamics in Talca. I think there's an expert there. Yeah.
Humberto Gonzalez, if I'm not mistaken.
That is great. I mean, you have a great teamwork here. I'm just starting. I'm the first one on the team. and also, I don't know if you receive an email from Senator Pugh.
No, I haven't.
No,
yeah.
well, he's going to write you. I show him the video. I don't know if you told. I asked your permission to keep on recording this process communication, yes, so I can share it directly with him and with other people. As you asked before, is our problem spatial or system dynamics? I'm a little bit confused because I think both are our problem. I mean, the scarcity of system thinking, and if we don't have system thinking, we won't have system dynamics. And also it's a spatial problem also because we have that regional ordering or territorial management somehow. We have, I think, a lot of information on what we have now, but we are not able to use it in an adequate way. As I told you again, we are very, very behind of what we should be doing. And if we don't do it and don't start now, we will have a very damaged region 10, 15 or 20 years.
Well, you're just like the rest of the world in that respect, I think. But I could clarify what lay behind Caroline's question, I think, a bit. If we take the WISE model, which I think you're familiar with, as an example, that's basically a spatial dynamics model, and it's particularly useful in an area like Waikato region in New Zealand because the area is densely settled with cities, towns, and farmers, and there's also remnants of a natural environment with the native New Zealand vegetation and or biota in general, and of course the towns want to grow and people want to build houses, but the farmers don't want their land taken or they want to speculate in the land. And at the same time, they want to save the natural environment, but people find it's valuable to use it for other purposes. So there's a great deal of competition for land. And of course, this is a systems dynamics problem, absolutely, but it's one with an intense spatial competition aspect. I suspect in the Aisan region, that's not so much the case because what I've seen, your cities are quite small compared to even to Hamilton in New Zealand. There would be some of that, but it's probably not the core of your problem. So that with something like the salmon fishery, that may be different. But then, of course, you're in a marine environment where it's possible to use some of the spatial dynamics, but then you want to know something about the hydrological activity, the currents and so on. Where do those pollutants end up? But there is also a spatial competition aspect there, with, as you mentioned already, the competition between the salmon farmers and the pollution they produce and the space they take up. And the local fishery of the more traditional sort. We have exactly the same problem in Newfoundland, where I live, and we have actually in the past modeled something along those lines as well, where you have spatial competition at sea. In our case, our model was of the lobster fishery. But it's depending on exactly what the problems are, which problems you want to emphasize or be able to focus on first, that sort of guides the type of modeling we do or the direction the modeling goes. That was what was behind the question.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm beginning to understand. I tell you in a humble way, I'm learning
Yeah.
with you. I know a lot of conceptual things.
Yeah.
I was also 8 years university professor at Universidad of Valparaíso,
Mm.
1,500 kilometers north.
Yeah.
And I understand we have many issues. So with your questions and with our chats, I'll be able to know and prioritize the issues.
Mm-hmm.
In this moment, it would be very irresponsible for my part to tell you, well, this is the first step.
Mm-hmm.
We should be challenged to find out what's the most challenging efforts, or how we call it,
Mm-hmm.
apalancamiento. This is the right word, where we start and we will make the best impact in short term
Mm-hmm.
somehow. That's what
Mm-hmm.
we should decide. Uh, but I think most of it is pollution. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
pollution in a way of waste or garbage,
Mm-hmm.
industrial garbage. Also, there's a lot of potential tourist activities that the government is funding, and also the wildlife, our local wildlife, or how you say the natural wildlife, also is getting somehow scarcity. You know, Tompkins Foundation made a great effort on and a lot of funds for protecting animals, puma or mountain lion, and we have some special kind of deers and etc. etc. But he didn't take in account the the people living there. I mean, he imposed his vision. He bought lands. He threw away people. I mean, just to get his mind and his dream and his
Mm-hmm.
vision. I mean, I think that is not the way. I mean, you have to participate with local community in the
Yeah.
step. And also we have energy problems here. We have pollution and air pollution in Coyhaique, one of the worst in Latin America. I
Really,
mean,
what is that from?
having
Is that from mining or?
having so much potential energy from rivers and potential hydroelectric plant. Ideology became into that problem because they didn't. There was two big projects for building a very big hydroelectric plant, and they couldn't be because of resistance or ideologies, I believe. But at the same time, the same people have a great problem in Coyhaique, and because they burn wood. I mean, and
Okay.
it's very enclosed through the mountains and have a
Yeah.
lot of air pollution. So uh, we had the solution at the side, but they didn't care about that. But we burn a lot of wood with a lot of sheep wood, and this is very cold weather, 5 to 10 uh, minus degrees in winter time in Coyhaique. It's quite different climate from Puerto Aysén. This is more coastal. Here it
Yes.
rains 3,000 millimeters per year, or maybe less. Before it rained a lot more.
Hmm.
So, well, I lost my way. uh, take me into the main
Yeah.
point. Uh,
Well, you were outlining. I think we see some of the problems. Yeah, you were outlining which seemed to be the main problems, and you were saying basically most of them were related to pollution.
yeah.
Uh, some of the ones you mentioned actually do have a spatial dynamics aspect to them. For example, the burning wood, which gets into the people using the forest, and the same thing with the wildlife. Of course, you had a very strange kind of using of the forest or the natural environment. There was somebody closing it off. I guess he bought it. and closed it off. But these are sort of spatial dynamic problems. And backing up a little bit more, one of the things that we have used to drive many of our applications, or one of the drivers, has been climate change, because it's very easy to put a climate change scenario to see how that affects the various aspects in the spatial models where people carry out various activities, or to what degree they do. How does it affect agriculture and so on? And because I think there's also some agriculture in your region from the pictures I've seen, there may be competition for water resources, especially if you do develop the hydro electric power. So these are aspects of the problems that would have a strong spatial dimension that would be very much in line with the kinds of modeling you saw that we still do, but that you saw in the WISE model. So, but it always gets to how exactly you model them always gets down to the particular situation and the focus you have. But it's interesting to me. But of course, before you call, I was sort of making a list of possible problems that you might have had there, to try to anticipate what we should find out from you. And you've covered a lot of it, like climate change, water use, and possible shortages of water, especially with climate change, pollution from salmon farming, and perhaps mining. I don't know if that is a problem.
Yeah, mining. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a huge potential of mining activities. There were two current mining companies that are closed down. One nearby 100 kilometers from Puerto Aysen, and the other one is near the Lago or General Carrera Lakes, one of the greatest one in Latin America, and that has, I mean, gold and zinc and plate, no, silver mining, but they are
Yeah.
currently lost. But there's a huge potential of mining resources here, so we must take care of that. There has been a lot of studies for the last 10 to 15 years, and they have found out many places to get raw material.
Yeah.
And I made my laundry list. I say climate change, less snow, water scarcity in a northern part of Chile, that people are not aware what is coming in the next 10, 20 years. They are not aware. I mean, it's like the frog on the water. It's just like that. Uh, as I told you, activities, cattle farming and agriculture. I mean, I think agriculture will grow with this climate change. Less snow, less rain, more sun. Yeah, commerce activities are related to. I mean, we depend a lot of government funding for activities. Let's say somehow we are not an independent region that we make a huge production for export, so we can self-financial our activities. I mean, we have a lot of government agency that are the most, that give about 70 to 80% of economic activity. Is somehow how you say when
Yeah.
uh, well, with road making, with funding, housing, with funding,
Education.
yeah, education. There's a lot of funding from the government. So we should start also thinking about how to get more autonomous in that way. Also, we have problem that salmon farming industry, yeah, they grow the salmon here, but they bring the people outside of the region, and the processing plant also are outside of the region.
Oh, really?
So we don't have how we say the benefits of that industry. So
Because
it's
you do
some
have
kind.
some food processing there, don't you? Or
Very small for
yeah.
a big fishing plant. I mean,
Yeah.
not big fishing, but normal size, that goes and fish
Yeah.
to the Pacific and then Atlantic Ocean and returns 10
Yeah.
days later. That is on the seaside,
Mm.
big factory fishing
Mm.
boat. And but as I told you, salmon farming is very low process here, because also we have some kind of social issues. I mean, we are very divided society. I mean, we have as whatever you find, left wing, right wing, and anti-capitalist, anti-economic activities, that the government must do everything and take care of them. That makes a lot of damage in the mind of many people because they feel the government should fund them everything instead of being empowered to produce, to be entrepreneur or to work with your own efforts for develop your family, yourself, whatever, your community. But well, that's another issue that I think it cannot be simulated. I mean, that's political issue, and to have new kinds of leadership and education. So I was telling you, artisanal fishery now is quite depleted. I mean, we have very low activity on that. On the night, it was a huge, big activity of artisanal fishery, and that help a lot of funding for local people, income, but now there's no anymore. Coastal activities also, there's a lot of within the salmon farming. It has a huge industry related to logistic, to maritime or seaside logistic. A lot of boats, home and these industrial waste, plastic waste. That I think there's everywhere in the world in this problem moment. The problem with plastic waste, pollution, dry wood extraction, and as I told you, being a region with so much potential for hydroelectric, we have a lot of diesel engines for producing electricity. Also the challenges that I believe the main challenge are first of mind shift or changing paradigm of the people that that will take a long time. I mean, because showing them this system, they want solutions right now, but
Yes.
I must find a way. What would happen if in 20 or 30 years ago we could have had this kind of solution? What the decision or what outcome should be now in the 2019? I mean, it's a great effort. I think it's not a technological issue. It will be a political issue to, as I tell you, God will save you, or this software will save you. I mean, it's something that we'll go step by step. My chief ideological polarized population, as I told you, uh, land selling. There's a lot of land selling for investor outsiders because they're thinking
Oh,
a lot of land selling
yeah.
of the old colonies, of the old people that lived here on the 1940, 1950. Because I believe, I mean, there are three issues. One of them is the end of the world. Huh? I mean, what would happen? Where we should go if something
Oh,
happens
you
and
mean
there's no.
people from outside the region? You mean people like from Europe
Yeah, exactly.
or
Buying
North America?
lands.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Just in case, and they pick up the jet
yeah,
and come here in a
yeah,
few hours in case of
yeah.
Third World War. Okay, let's. Also for
That's happening in New Zealand as well.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So also we should talk about the tourist activity. So the land has also there's a lot of people thinking in the future for just reselling or just
yeah,
for future activities and third it's just for investment, for long-term investment. I mean, mainly it's for that, but I don't think it is focalized in future activities as we have talked, thinking about climate change, agriculture, or other activities. Also, we had a huge forest fire on the 40s by ignorance. People just starting with great fires just to clean the woods so they could start working with cattle and settlement, human settlement. And I think there were millions of hectares that were burned out. And and well, uh, and also we have also we had a loss between 15 to 20,000 hectares last summer lost by fires, forestry fires. And also we don't have a model for trying to simulate fires, future fires, and how to prevent them or how to react very fast, not 2 or 3 weeks after he has been all burned out. I don't know. I could talk a lot of things. I'm just expressing myself in an open way, but that must be focused under your experience and to tell me what you need, what kind of professional should we have here, what professionals from your part, and then starting writing down from my part the project, and then get funding. I have a meeting with a millionaire investor that I mean he lives in the region and try to get as more as independent as possible so we don't burn out the project in a political way. I mean, I believe this project must be very independent, so it is not manipulated.
Okay. Where do we begin here?
Yeah, that's why I don't know where.
Yeah.
Where's the leverage point? That's the word I forgot. Where's the leverage point to start all this going on?
Yeah. Well, my instinct is that probably the best place to start is in something involving the spatial dynamics, which would probably involve the things like, well, you mentioned air pollution, involve things like the air pollution, forestry, deforestation. Those are all related issues. Perhaps some growth of the towns and what impact that has. Maybe if that's useful, something having to do with wildlife. You mentioned that. I don't know. That's another area. But it's if you're trying to get an integrated picture of the region, it's useful to have at least one sample of each sort of area, like to sort of demonstrates how you could link more and more aspects together. A lot of this would depend on what sort of data is available as well.
That's what is also I will need a help from you to tell me what data is available here, what studies are, so I can start asking what data, what information, what geographic information system, whatever. I mean, I will be your subordinate here. You will be my boss. You will tell me what to do and continue. It's the only way. I mean, other way is not useful.
Yeah, well, I think it's not useful if we're your boss. I think we have to work together completely on this. Yeah. But some of the data that we would normally need to get started, though often sometimes there are workarounds depending on how much accuracy you want. But things, for example, well, the basic would be land use or land cover. And ideally for 2 different years separated by, say, 10 years or more or less. And this could be depending on what areas you want to cover. If you're talking about the whole ASEAN region, is that the area you're talking about? The whole of the area that has about 120,000 or 100 and some thousand square kilometers? Is that the region you're talking about? So we would need, but maybe it might, depending, we might focus on some areas within that because a lot of that region probably not be needed to be modeled in much detail.
Yeah, exactly.
So land use would be the first one, land use, land cover, what's on the land, and also population, where it is in as much detail as possible, ideally at the same resolution as the land use data. And then other things that would be very useful, but again, depending on what would be economic activity represented by where the jobs are, where actually, again, if possible, the same resolution as the land use, where are the jobs. But it could be other sorts of, depending on what we do, other sorts of economic information as well. Probably data on soils, if we're including things like agriculture or even forests and possible impacts of climate change, soils data would be useful. depending again on what we end up modeling or focusing on, hydrology would be useful, precipitation, but maybe those aren't necessary depending on what we'd end up doing. Topography is almost essential, but you probably got that. Almost everyone nowadays has a DEM of the area, but maybe not. I don't because I don't know the region.
Exactly.
And then some sort of infrastructure map, and the detail would depend on what we were doing exactly, but it would be things like roads or possibly sewers and so on. Maybe the power grid as well, because you talk about diesel generation. I assume you mean to supply electricity to small communities. I have to say, when you describe the region, it sounds exactly like where I live. Your landscape is more dramatic. You have big mountains and glaciers and so on. But in terms of small communities and isolation, and you have to fly 3 hours to get somewhere else, and pollution problem, diesel generation in smaller communities, I feel right at home when I hear you talk.
Oh, that's great.
Sorry?
So that is great. So we are under the same.
It's not like Belgium.
Yeah.
Belgium is the other extreme here. I sort of live on the two extremes. So where were we? Those are the sort of probably the main data we would need to as a base, and depending on exactly what we would end up doing, of course other data would be required depending on the precise sorts of things there that we would be doing.
I will get that data for you, and I believe also trying to get an English summary about the region, so you can make a better feeling historical and what is happening. So we'll make a summary of the region,
Okay.
qualitative. Also, we'll need what kind of professionals, PhD, doctor, or whatever, specialists in technology and GIS or whatever you would need here as a counterpart. So I can start searching.
Yeah, I think first we need someone GIS probably. Yeah, and
We use the data.
yeah, and somebody who's used to dealing with data. And beyond that, it would sort of depend on where we go. There was something else that crossed my mind, and I slipped from what it was.
Well, I have both of them. Data, especially a man that mathematician that makes modeling, so he will be able to work.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah.
And hopefully, system dynamics. Here's something that hasn't straight. I mean, I know globally system dynamics, but I'm not a specialist. I mean, I'm a little bit more. I say I'm a Neo or a Morpheus out of the Matrix, but I'm not a specialist on the Matrix.
I remember what I was going to say. You mentioned an English description of the region and so on. That would be useful, but also I can read Spanish. I can't really speak it except a few words, and sometimes I can understand a bit, but I can read it all right. So if you have things in Spanish that, especially technical things, I have no trouble with.
Okay.
But I think some other people here would find it useful if you have things in English as well. But don't just refuse to send something because it's in Spanish.
Okay. I will prepare a cloud where I can put all the information so everybody can have access to that information. So I don't want to bother you, your email. I'm very hyperkinetic sometimes, and I just start sending. My mind goes and blows. But sometimes I'm very fast thinking, but that is not a good issue. I must go on your speed because you have many other issues working on. And as I say, it's important to know also if we could have access to some previous project that I can work on, change the variable names, let's say, change the information of funding so I can start working. I mean, I don't need to invent or create the wheel again if the wheel is already. So if you can allow me for past projects, make a copy paste and then make some changing on the things, and then I present it to you, and then I go and start working for funds raising, because it's very important for you, I believe.
Right. Yes, we need funds. That's for sure.
Exactly. exactly for
Yeah.
everybody.
Maybe, Lee, maybe you should discuss this a little bit more detail, what Jorge is just asking.
Oh,
You mean
remember that I'm recording this conversation. So this conversation is really a document, working document. So I will review many. So as you can tell anything you need, anything. So then I can, and then written down when I make a review. And okay.
where do you want me to start? At the
Well,
at the funds
I
or
was just
at
not
the,
no. Well,
at the
it
documents?
sounds the past projects that
Yeah.
it sounds like you're looking for something you could use sort of as a demonstration or an illustration or
Yeah.
of what the
Demonstration,
possibilities are.
illustration, and also if you have a document, so with budget, so I can
Yeah.
adapt it and start working on lobbying to
Yeah.
three issues. Yeah,
Yeah.
and whatever comes into your mind, let it flow.
I think for the previous projects, the problem we have here is that most of them are for the Flemish government on really specific. It's not a systems dynamic model, it's a really specific question. And the things we have here about systems dynamics is mostly from larger European fundings, but then they're specifically for, but then it's all in Dutch, we can translate that, of course. But the European projects are mostly on coastal regions, but we can use that as a starting point also for the budgets and to make adaptations on the document.
Well, we do have did have a project, a European project, but it focused on part of Belgium, which was looking at the relationship between growth and climate change and the consequences for groundwater. So it integrated climate in the form even down to the level of almost daily precipitation events. It wasn't quite that detailed, but so that we could model runoff versus infiltration seasonally, because it depends on the land cover, which is different in the winter when the soil is bare on the fields, and in the summer when it's their crops. And industries and communities were extracting groundwater, and then they were competing for that. And so if there was not enough groundwater to go around, that would constrain the agriculture or would constrain growth in the municipalities. So, and the municipalities were growing because of population growth. And so, so this was an example that illustrates the links between the human system and the natural system. That might be useful. But I don't know. This is
met action.
Oh, this is the grow at risk.
Grow at risk. Yeah. That was a Belgian funding. This one. But
it was Belgian.
Yeah,
except that it involved teams from other countries like
there
Greece.
was Greece involved, but they did.
Oh, right, and then Wallonie, which is that's a country.
Anyways, there's some kind of those projects that it could be good, but not for this region. So I can send it to another authority. So, I mean, I can find many opportunities for you to work on. I mean, it won't be trouble for me, but that's special for the water supply, natural water. We are having a lot of problems all in the northern part of Chile. So also that information, it could be quite well for Valparaiso, for what we have.
Well, I didn't mean that it would be relevant to your region. I just simply meant it's an example of a model that links natural and human systems in a spatial way there. Because other projects are very specific. Was one on the Mediterranean coast to show for the French railways to show the economic impact depending on
train stations,
where they put the new TGV line. The fast high-speed rail line, whether they put it near the existing one or put it well inland to try to stimulate regional development. But that's, I think, even less relevant to. That's a very specialized sort of thing.
Okay.
But maybe Lynn can think of other ones that are. I think we don't have any applications that are to a region like yours, because mostly people who want these models are living in dense areas where everything is a problem because everyone is competing for space and resources.
Okay. But can we use somehow, is it compatible with what you do, what was made in Waikato? Also, can I use that information? I mean, are you available to work with not that software, but I believe you are now outside of RICS,
Yeah.
but in your current institution, you have, I think, a better software than that one. I mean, incorporates everything and
Yes.
more. I mean,
Yeah, it's
We have developed our own version of this software.
Yeah.
We have the former IT people who worked on the RIG software are now here in Vito.
that's
So
great. Yeah, that's
we
important.
have
I mean, and the software must be for dummies, let's say, so I can explain everybody here.
Yeah.
I don't explain them the
Yeah.
equations and the system dynamics. I just show them, look, this is what the
Yeah.
potential, whatever. But you have developed,
Well,
yeah,
yeah, well,
that's important.
the WISE model is it's very much like actually the one that I just mentioned, having to do with the groundwater issues here in Belgium. The technical details are quite different, but the type of model, it's almost the same type of model, just and they deal with the same sorts of problems, the same issues. That is where the people, how the growth, the interrelationship of the agriculture and the hydrology, and so you could almost use the WISE demonstration, but the interface would be very different.
Yeah, it would look different, but it will do exactly the same.
Okay. I mean, I will find out little people walking and cows eating. It's like Team City, no? No, just joking. Okay.
Actually, it might be interesting to you to see the model we did of for lobster fishery, which is very different sort of model. But I'm not sure I have a copy. I have it at home in Newfoundland, but I don't know if I can get one here. But I might send you that you might be interested in it. It might give you some other ideas as well.
Okay.
But
okay, so I believe I can show somehow what was made in Waikato, and because you are, I mean, there won't be any dissolution once we work it out because you have a better upgrade of that. So I mean, there won't be any incoherence. Okay, I believe that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what people take from it. If they think it's exactly the same things, and if it looks, it won't be. But it's really the same. Fundamentally, it's the same model. It deals with the same kinds of issues, the same kinds of phenomena.
Because there's a big challenge for, well, once we go over the paradigm shift, once we get the fast one, I mean, I believe that any software, I mean, the interface for software must be for dummies. I mean, if you show something extremely complex, people get afraid of it, of using. So for us, it's very important to be for dummies. So you push this button, you get this one, and also if you have some kind of demo what you have done, I can translate it into Spanish, the menus and the words, so I can start showing off. I don't know. I'm still open-minded. I'm learning with you what you have, and then my unconscious will help me. What are the next steps? Okay.
Okay. Yeah, it's too bad we don't have a demo. The island model was a demo, actually.
Well, I had the island demo, yeah, but okay, no problem. But I can use the Metronamica or Metronamica software. Okay, I can choose that one just to show people. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you won't have any problem about it.
I don't think so. Metronomica, I guess, is now also the name they use it in RICS.
Yeah, I think so.
But again, it's the same model.
It's the same.
Exactly. I mean, I can show them, but I will tell the people, I mean, something similar like this. Or Dynamica, also, whatever. Okay.
Yes.
I mean, there won't be any conflicts within your institution. I mean, that's important for me, for having respect with you.
If it's really free open source demos, then you can use them anyway.
Just to show. I mean, I will tell people that, I mean, this won't be exact like this software, like this menus.
It will do the same.
Yeah, exactly. so I don't want to get into conflicts between you and.
So you do have a copy already of Metronomica, do you?
Yeah, but they didn't send me the project file, so and I downloaded it, and it says until December of 2018. So it's I mean, they haven't kept an update on their system, so I
Yeah.
downloaded, but I couldn't. I opened it, but I couldn't find any file on that.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's useless.
Yeah. But if you can use it as a demo, do you see any reason?
Yeah, if it's existing and
Yeah.
Well, I have the island demo of Santa Lucia also, so
Yeah.
I mean, I
I'm
can.
not sure that won't even run on our computers any
Yeah,
longer.
my one runs. I mean, opens. I don't know if it runs, but
Yeah.
but no problem. It's just understand us. We are not very technological to the
Yeah.
people that I must show, mainly politics and decision
Yeah.
maker.
Yeah.
It must be for dummies. I mean,
Yeah.
because it's a new technology that you have been working during all last 30 years, but it must be right useful so they can just start. Oh wow, they get very interested in that. So
Yeah.
that is my political part
Yeah.
first. I mean,
Yeah.
as I tell you, this will save the world, brother. I
Yeah.
mean, that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, we don't have something like the Wise video because that's a very nice video. It's
Yeah, and you
yeah.
will have it, and I will
Yeah.
have you in the future. So we'll come.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's one of the deliverables, I think, to
Yeah.
make something
Okay.
like that.
Okay.
If it's purely for the system dynamics part, then we can have demos from Flanders, which we have a system dynamic model, but it's not spatial then. So it gives regional trends and numbers, but no.
In that system dynamics, you use what software? The Norwegian one or?
Extent
Sim, but we also use Stella and Vensim.
Stella or
Vensim.
Vensim, no.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
whatever.
but the
I mean,
system model for Flanders was done in Extend Sim. It's licensed software.
yeah.
But Vensim is free of charge. There's a user license, read-only license, runtime license. No.
Okay.
So depending if it's a new application, we could use Vensim. We're using this in the EU-funded coastal project.
Okay. No problem. Yeah. Vensim.
So these are demos, but non-spatial then. It's regional trends and regional effects, but no spatial translation to land use maps and.
You just see graph. Just see the graph. No problem.
It's true. It looks at feedback of the system between economics and environment.
Okay.
At a very detailed level, it looks at traffic, at land use as well. But I have to say that a number of variables are spatial. They are not spatial like in the way that they're described on a map, but they have a spatial meaning, like density of land use, and also I think there's a pressure variable.
Okay.
So it's
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, sorry to be so insistent. I mean, there's some scientific and very high academic work that we all agree on that, and there was going to be for dummies part. Okay. And, sorry to tell again that because people can tell me, oh wow, beautiful how you talk and explain. Oh, you must be very brilliant, but we don't understand the system. I mean, that has. Well,
we are used to that as well because we are used to work for the government in Flanders and it's totally the same. So we make applications they use. We don't keep it in the academic.
Okay, that is good. That is very important for
use cases. So
even
it's complex, but it's
On the 19th, on the 2000, I started making classes at Universidad del Paraíso. After I returned from USA, Houston University, as I told Roger that I studied future studies. So there where I learned system dynamics, system thinking, scenario planning, whatever complex system, and it was quite hard. I mean, to introduce those courses, but I managed to do it. But no other of the other professor could understand me. I mean, it was so complex to tell them, hey, you are teaching archaeology and your system. The systems that don't work, they get mad at me. But I mean, it was my fault because sometimes you are so advanced in information. It doesn't mean that one is brilliant. I mean, you have quite new information that some people don't understand and won't ever understand. That is complex. So sometimes you are an enemy of them because they don't understand. They think that you're wasting their time, their resources, whatever. I mean, that was my experience. Even at university, we're supposed to be universal thinking, where all the knowledge is coming. No, but it's made out of people that they're always fighting also in politics and power over
Yes.
position. I mean,
Yes.
okay, that's my truth. But I think we were going on with, but we have experience, your background, your results, and they are already working. I mean, they have shown, I think, in Waikato and New Zealand, even it's not it is the same software, but I think that has shown very good goals, very good results. Even I think they have the same language now, the same vision, and they're working with the scenario planning and a
Yes.
lot of community participation. I mean, that is very important.
Mhm. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
But it takes a lot of time, I'm
Yeah,
afraid.
yeah,
Yeah.
10 to 15 years or
Yeah.
20 years, but I'm here.
Yeah.
I don't belong in
Yeah.
Patagonia. I just came out here. I
Yeah.
lived in the 90s for 2, 3 years. I built up a naval shipyard business. Then I returned to Viña del Mar, there where I was a professor and made other things. Then I returned 10 years ago, but I burned out my ship, so I'm gonna die here in this region, and I feel I can put all my efforts on developing this project. I don't need money. This is not a project for me. I have my own funds. I have my company and things. So for me, this is fun, but more than fun, also a fun that should be useful for future generations. That's my point of view. I see this project as I told you, Roger, transcendence project. That maybe one will be just the building the bridge, just hold the bridge or two, and other people will go through me. So I mean, it's the right way to understand when I must lead the project and put other people. And that's what I must learn, to be very humble and to be able to say, hey, this man knows more than me, so he must lead this process. So I'm very open in that way of not getting engaged with this project. This is my project. No. I'm ready to fill out if there's somebody better than me to manage the system.
I doubt that's going to happen soon.
Yeah, 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 I believe that. But what is important, the match or the woods?
Yeah.
I always say, what is important? The anchor, the chains? I mean, both are important. So, I mean, it can happen. So, no problem. We will go through. Okay.
Okay.
We'll start working with the information that we have. I will, if you want to share out the emails of everybody. I promise you not to send you virus or to
Yeah.
to push you too hard. I will go to your same speed and velocity, okay?
Okay.
And then you start asking me, but it's important uh, if we could have, let's say, a preliminary budget before the
Yeah.
project. So
Yeah.
I will start talking and pushing out where I can get funds, so we can keep on burning the wood. Oh, no, it's not ecological. To have a warm in our conversation. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
And
Okay.
we can send you some
Some
proceedings and papers.
background documentation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
Mhm.
where sometimes international funds are also available, then we can work it out through Congress and through embassies and whatever. I mean, maybe also you have some funds available for Latin America, wherever. I mean, that can be very helpful for you. I mean, we are open in that.
Mhm.
Now, if you feel so, oh yes, Jorge, European community has this funds for third world or whatever, blah, 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 and we can go through that level also. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just learning.
I don't think Chile counts as third world.
Yeah, but sometimes it depends on the situation with third world. Sorry not to be able to show
You
my
have,
hands. I had an
for
accident
instance,
here.
Yeah,
Yeah, I had an accident on.
World Bank, for instance, is a
yeah.
sort of
Is it? Yeah,
a funding
yeah.
Yeah,
agency, maybe.
but also I
Yeah.
will make my homework here. Okay, so
Mhm.
whatever.
Okay,
But it's a
good.
great challenge and it's an urgent work we need because we know that results will be on 5 or 10 years. But if we don't do it, I mean, I don't know what is going to happen.
Yeah. Well, you can speculate what will happen, which is why
Yeah,
you're trying to get this project going.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate your time and I must do my homework, okay?
Okay.
And thank you very much. You're a great teamwork, and I'm just learning as I tell you. And I've been reading a lot. So then my consciousness start talking like you. I'm starting to learn a new language. It's really that was happening at the end to be able, but I must do my homework here. Okay.
Okay, good. So
Okay.
we'll
Okay. Thank
we'll
you
be
very
in touch.
much.
Yeah.
Be in touch,
Okay.
and you're a great team. And here I hope to raise up a good team, not only intellectually but also spiritually. For me, it's very
Good.
important. Okay. Bye
Yeah.
bye then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Okay.
Okay,
See you
Be
thank
then.
well.
you.
Yeah. Bye bye.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye bye.